My sister once live-streamed my broken-down kitchen and called it Great Depression Chic, while pocketing $18,000 from a fake fundraiser using my name. Hi, I'm Lauren. I bought an $800 house with my savings, money my parents expected me to give to Emily's luxury retreat. Instead of gratitude, I got erased from the family group chat and banned from Easter dinner. But here's the twist. They thought kicking me out would break me. They didn't realize I'd turn silence into strategy and take back my voice in front of 1,000 cameras. Before we dive into the story, let me learn a bit about you. If you're a charming lady, please leave the number 1 in the comments. And if you're a dashing gentleman, leave the number 2. This way I can send you a special greeting. Now let's start the story together. I don't remember what kind of wine Mom poured that night, only that it was too sweet and warm by the time it reached my glass. The roast was dry. The potatoes were lumpy, but everything looked beautiful. The table perfectly set, napkins folded like swans, candles flickering against the crystal. That was the thing about our family. From the outside, it always looked like a picture worth framing. I hadn't been home in months. After a string of freelance gigs and a few health scares I kept to myself, I'd quietly slipped out of the city and into something more invisible. That Sunday, though, I came back to Portland, back to the table where I'd learned how to smile with a closed mouth, how to laugh without showing my teeth. Emily was already holding court when I arrived, her voice soft and polished, talking about her upcoming Sedona retreat like it was a spiritual rebirth. "It's not just a getaway," she said, twirling her fork through untouched kale. "It's about realignment. You can't lead others if your inner compass is broken." Mom, who had never spoken to me about compasses, beamed like Emily had invented therapy. 15,000, she said proudly, but for what she's been through, it's nothing. We're proud to help. They all looked at me then, subtle, expectant. Dad's fingers tapped lightly on his water glass. Mom adjusted her necklace. Emily offered a smile I'd seen her give to donors at her fundraising brunches. I knew what was coming. I just didn't expect it to feel so rehearsed. Carol asked, her voice carefully pleasant. "Lauren, didn't you say you'd be sending your part last week?" I didn't touch my wine. I looked at my plate, and then I said it. I didn't send anything, I bought something. The sound of forks scraping ceramic stopped mid-sentence. Even Emily's face froze, suspended in a soft, practiced smile. "You bought something?" Mom said slowly, like I'd mispronounced a word. "A house," I said. "It's a fixer-upper, but it's mine." Silence. Real silence. Not the kind where people wait for you to finish, but the kind where you've said too much, or the wrong thing, or something they can't fit into their version of you. Emily was the first to break it. "You bought a shack instead of helping me reset?" She let out a quiet laugh, equal parts pity and disbelief. "That's so on brand for you." I felt my pulse climb, but I kept my face calm. "I never promised to fund your trip. I just didn't say no out loud." Dad finally spoke. "You spent your savings on yourself." He didn't say it with anger. That would have meant he cared enough to raise his voice. He said it like a disappointment being confirmed, like a check mark in a box. "You've clearly chosen your path," he said, "and that's fine, but don't expect us to support your choices." I looked down at my half-finished meal. It tasted like cardboard now. There was no fight in me, not tonight. I took one last sip of the wine, stood up, and placed my napkin gently by the plate. No one followed me when I walked out. That night, lying on the motel bed I could barely afford, I checked my phone. The family group chat was gone, not muted, not archived. Gone. My name had been erased, clean and without comment, a quiet delete like I was never in the thread to begin with. By sunrise, I was driving east. The farther I got from Portland, the more the air changed. It wasn't fresher, just lonelier. I crossed into Colorado as the clouds rolled over the mountains like thick wool blankets. When I pulled into Durango, the rain had started, thin, steady, and cold. The house was exactly like the listing, only worse. Peeling paint, a sagging porch, a roof that looked like it needed prayer more than shingles. But it was standing, and it was mine. All $800 of it. I shifted into park and turned off the engine. For a moment, I didn't move. I just watched the rain streak down the windshield and let the silence settle. Not the kind from my parents' house. This one was raw, unpolished, real. I opened the trunk and pulled out the fold-up chair I used for writing sessions. The metal legs sank slightly into the gravel as I set it down. It creaked when I sat. I didn't care. The rain hit my jacket in soft thuds. The mud tugged at my boots like it wanted to pull me under. But I stayed. I didn't cry. I didn't speak. I just sat there. For the first time in years, there was no performance to uphold, no family script to recite. When my phone buzzed, I didn't check it right away. I knew who it was. Eventually, I did. The message was short. No greeting, no sign-off. Do not come to Easter. No love, Mom. I stared at it for a long time. Then I locked my phone and slid it back into my pocket like a piece of myself I no longer needed. I reached for the key to the house, rough and rusted, and closed my fingers around it. The rain kept falling, steady and indifferent. I wasn't sure if I'd made the right choice, but I knew it was mine. And for now, that would have to be enough. The sound the curtain rod made when it hit the floor was louder than I expected. Sharp, metallic. I sat there for a second, holding my elbow where it had grazed the wall. The sting was small, but somehow it cracked open something deeper. I had only been in the house 3 days, and already it felt like the walls knew what I didn't want to admit. This was real. The mornings in Durango weren't cruel, just indifferent. Cold air crept through the window gaps, and the floor beneath my socks was always damp. I wrapped a second sweater around my waist and went to reboil the water on the stovetop. The kettle sputtered. I poured myself a mug of instant coffee that tasted like old pennies, then leaned against the counter to sip and stare at the broken rod on the floor. I didn't know why the curtain falling bothered me so much. Maybe because I'd brought it from my first college apartment, the one place I ever lived without tiptoeing. The fabric was thin, a faded blue floral print, but I'd kept it, like I'd been keeping too many things that didn't quite work anymore. While I stood there, staring at nothing, the memories started creeping in. I didn't call them. They just came. My 16th birthday. I could still see the cake, store-bought, white frosting with pink letters. Happy birthday, Rowena. No second N. I had corrected teachers my whole life, and somehow my own family got it wrong. They blamed the bakery, laughed it off. It's just a cake, Mom said. Don't be dramatic. Callista, Emily to the world, had helped decorate the living room. There were balloons, streamers, the kind of effort that looked good in pictures. What didn't make it to the photos was what she got that year, a used Volkswagen complete with a big red bow. I got a hug and a maybe next year when I asked about driving school. I sipped the coffee, now lukewarm, and moved toward the hall closet where I'd thrown a box of old photos. Most of them were stuffed in without order. School shots, holiday cards, blurry snapshots. I pulled out a frame. The glass cracked in the corner. It was from a family picnic during my college graduation. In the picture, Emily was mid-laugh, holding up a camera. My face, barely visible, obscured behind her lens. I'd asked them to retake it. They didn't. I'll edit you in, she said with a laugh. I pressed my thumb against the edge of the glass, gently pushing aside the dust. Behind the photo, taped to the backboard, was something I hadn't seen in years. A sticky note, faded yellow, my handwriting still clear. This is not who I am. I didn't even remember writing it. But there it was, tucked behind a version of me that barely made it into the frame. That's when the phone rang. I let it buzz once, twice. I didn't move. Only when it stopped did I pull it from my pocket. Missed call. Aunt Corinne. There was a voicemail, but then her name popped up again. This time I answered. Hey baby, she said, voice warm and familiar, like the inside of a flannel blanket. "I saw you weren't in the family group chat anymore." I let out a small laugh. "Yeah, digitally exiled." There was a pause, not awkward, just waited. "I want to tell you something," she said, "and I hope you'll listen." I nodded, forgetting she couldn't see me. "I'm listening." "You were never the problem," she said. "You just weren't Emily, that's all. That was your only crime." I sat down on the kitchen floor, back against the fridge. The cold crept through my jeans. "I know it still hurts," she said, "and I wish I could say something to make it not, but I can't." "It's not just the hurt," I said quietly. "It's the clarity, realizing they didn't forget me, they just didn't want to see me." Corinne didn't say anything at first, just breathed softly on the other end. "Sometimes," she finally said, "people build a version of family that only works if you're quiet, if you don't ask for more, if you stay small." I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Her words slid into the spaces I hadn't dared to name. When the call ended, I stayed there for a while, listening to the soft tick of the fridge that didn't work, letting the silence settle around me, not like punishment, but like shelter. The house wasn't warm. It wasn't comfortable, but it didn't ask me to disappear, and that, in its own strange way, felt like love. My phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't Aunt Corinne. Voicemail from Mom. I didn't press play. Not yet. The first thing I noticed was the sound. Not the usual creaks of the floorboards or the wind whistling through the gaps in the windows, but something sharper, an artificial chirp, rhythmic and cheerful. I followed it into the kitchen where a ring light was casting a harsh white glow over my chipped counters. Callista stood in the center of it all, full face of makeup, speaking into her phone like she was hosting a morning show. I hadn't even known she'd unpacked. "And this is where my sister's been staying," she cooed. "It's a bit of a fixer, but we love a transformation, don't we?" I stood frozen at the doorway, coffee mug in hand, the steam curling upward like it was trying to escape too. "This fridge hasn't worked since like Y2K, she laughed, giving it a kick. "Honestly, it's giving Great Depression chic." The comments on her screen buzzed in steady intervals, chimes of approval from people who didn't know me, who didn't know anything. One popped up. "Is that really your sister? She looks like a squatter." Callista didn't even blink. She turned the camera toward me. "Yep, that's her." Something inside me clicked. Not snapped. Clicked. Like a switch being flicked after a long time in the dark. I walked across the room and gently but firmly took the phone from the tripod. The suction of the pop socket pulling free was the only sound. Callista gasped, half a beat too late. "What are you doing?" she said, half whining, half pleading. I looked at her steady. "You want content?" I said. "Get out before I give them the real story." Her mouth opened, then closed. She reached for the phone again. I stepped back. "You don't get to use my life like this. Not anymore." Her expression shifted, one I knew well. She layered on the confusion, the hurt, the fake softness. "I was just trying to help," she said. "People care. They might donate or something. It was for you." I handed her the phone like it was a receipt she didn't want. "Get out." She sniffed, collected her makeup bag with a dramatic sigh. As she walked past me, she made sure to say it loud enough for the imagined audience still lingering in her mind. "This is what I get for trying to be a good sister." The door closed behind her with a soft, self-important thud. I stood there a long moment, hand still slightly raised from where I'd handed her the phone. The light from the ring device buzzed faintly. I unplugged it. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat on the couch with an old quilt wrapped around my legs, scrolling aimlessly. That's when I saw it. Her GoFundMe. Help my sister rebuild. My face was the banner, mid-step, holding a garbage bag, hair tied up, eyes downcast. Below it, another photo, me on the couch, wrapped in the quilt Aunt Corinne gave me after everything fell apart. Raised, $18,340. Recipient, Callista Vale Business PayPal. The caption made it worse. My baby sis has been through so much. Let's give her the life she deserves. I stared at it for a long time, blinking against the burn in my eyes. There was nothing accidental about it. She didn't ask, didn't even mention it. She'd waited for me to fall out of frame and then painted the picture she needed. The comments were full of praise. People were sending money, offering prayers, telling her she was a light in dark times. My hands shook as I opened our last text thread. The last thing she'd sent was a selfie, smiling from my porch. No mention of the campaign. I tried reporting the fundraiser. The site responded, "This campaign does not violate our community guidelines." Of course it didn't. My phone buzzed again. Instagram DM, a username I didn't recognize, legal.lc.co. "Hey, saw the GoFundMe. You didn't approve that, did you?" I blinked, reread it twice. "I'm a paralegal," the next message said. "Colorado bar certified. This looks like civil exploitation. Maybe wire fraud depending how funds were framed. Want to talk receipts?" I stared at the screen. My heart didn't race. It settled. I typed back one word. "Yes." Elsie responded instantly. "Cool. Start with screen recordings. Capture timestamps. Don't confront her publicly yet. Trust me." I exhaled, long and steady. For the first time in weeks, I didn't feel like prey. I felt like I had a plan. The house smelled like paint and lemon cleaner, though I hadn't used either that morning. I had the windows cracked open to let the mountain air sweep through, but it didn't touch the hum in my chest. My laptop blinked on the kitchen table, open to a Zoom call. Elsie's face appeared sharp as ever, framed by shelves of legal pads and a half-finished latte. "Last review," she said. "After this, it's out of our hands. You ready?" I nodded. "I don't mean emotionally," she added. "I mean legally." "I know," I said. "And yes, I'm ready." She tapped her pen once. "This does more than stop her from using your image. It documents a pattern of misrepresentation. That matters." We reviewed the final clauses. By now I knew them by heart. Cease and desist, misappropriation of likeness, fraud-adjacent language, and one very specific clause about third-party fundraising without the subject's consent. I initialed everything. Elsie uploaded the documents to the courier server. "She goes live in 10, she said. "Envelope's been signed for. The delivery window's confirmed." I muted the call and walked to the window. The town looked normal, kids biking, dogs barking. But my mind was 1,000 miles west, already scanning the digital horizon. Callista had been teasing this live stream for days. Raw truth, family healing, answering your DMS live. Her Instagram stories were full of softly filtered photos, burning sage, handwritten notes, mugs of tea next to inspirational books she'd never read. She titled the stream, "Radical Realignment When Family Hurts." I poured a glass of water and brought my laptop to the couch. Her face lit up my screen as soon as the stream started. She was radiant. The background was pure marketing, a velvet chair, glowing candles, a bamboo plant. Even the lighting was warm and apologetic. "I know there's been a lot of noise," she began, hands folded in her lap, "but I want to focus on love. Love for the people who shape us, even when it's hard." The comments rolled in like waves. "You're so brave. We believe you. She's just jealous." She launched into her narrative. Misunderstood sister, complicated dynamics, her heart always in the right place. I watched without blinking. She was good, rehearsed, seamless. Then it happened. The courier stepped into frame. It wasn't dramatic. He didn't say a word, just handed her the envelope. Her smile froze, eyes flicking toward the camera, then the assistant off-screen. For a few seconds, she didn't move. Someone in the chat posted, "What's that?" Callista broke the silence with a small, forced laugh. "1 sec, angels. Just something from a brand. Be right back." She didn't come back. The stream cut. Within minutes, hashtags bloomed like wildfire. Callista exposed, cease and desist live. That envelope moment clips spread faster than truth. People slowed the footage to catch her facial change frame by frame, the assistant's expression, the way her hand trembled just before the camera cut. I didn't refresh, I just sat still. The wind didn't feel like fireworks. It felt like a weight lifting off my ribs. Quiet, steady, earned. My phone buzzed. It wasn't from Callista. It was an email. Subject, concern regarding community grant applications. From Skyline Estates. HOA President. The message was formal, clipped, full of carefully chosen words. Dear Ms. Chen, it has come to our attention that Callista Vale submitted materials citing your residence and hardship as part of her nonprofit housing grant requests. Attached were PDFs, scans of printed forms with my name, my address, and phrases like displaced trauma survivor, emergency cohabitation, and rebuilding sanctuary. There were dates, signatures, even a blurry photo of the front of my house, clearly taken without my knowledge. I downloaded every file and forwarded them to Elsie. She replied 5 minutes later. This isn't just PR fraud anymore, she wrote. This might go federal. I didn't expect the ballroom to smell like lilies and citrus, but it did. Expensive ones, too. Probably flown in. The kind you see in wedding magazines, always pristine and unreachable. The walls were draped in ivory fabric. A jazz trio played somewhere off to the left, soft enough to sound elegant, loud enough to blur any real conversation. The banner above the stage read, Callista Cares, healing families one heart at a time. I adjusted the silver chain around my neck, the same one Mom once called flea market junk, and walked through the lobby without being stopped. No cameras turned my way, no murmurs. Just the soft shuffle of my heels on marble and the occasional clink of champagne flutes. I found a seat near the back, in the shadow of a palm frond centerpiece. I didn't come to confront her. I came to witness. Callista was already on stage when the lights dimmed. Her dress shimmered like polished bone, ivory silk, high neck, belted waist. The crowd hushed. She smiled like she'd been waiting her whole life for this moment. Maybe she had. Thank you for being here, she began, voice steady, hands open like a preacher or a wellness coach. Family is messy, but healing is possible. Tonight we raise funds for those who've been unseen. A slideshow flickered to life behind her, photos of children holding signs that read, "Thank you," stock images of soup kitchens, a few shaky cell phone videos of wellness retreats in dry, beautiful deserts. The crowd clapped at all the right moments. Phones stayed up, recording everything. Then the screen glitched, just for a second, then again. Then, still and clear, a screenshot appeared. A message thread. The font was unmistakable. Her name, her words. Let her rot in that dump. I gave them the GoFundMe link for PR. She's good for sympathy points. The room stilled. At first there was confusion, a couple of nervous chuckles, then the sound of 100 phones being lifted at once. Callista blinked, just once. Her mouth opened, then closed. Looks like a tech glitch, she said, forcing a laugh. Let's move on. But the screen didn't move. A second screenshot slid in. Keep the cameras low, show the cracks. Her smile faltered. Someone near the front stood up. Another whispered to their date. A low ripple ran through the ballroom. It wasn't rage, it was revelation. I stayed seated. I didn't need to do anything. Then, from the table near the stage, Aunt Valerie stood. She had been scheduled to give a closing speech, a tidy 2 minutes about resilience and family strength. The script still sat folded on her plate. She didn't take it. Instead, she walked up the steps, adjusted the mic, and looked straight into the crowd. I was asked to speak tonight about hope, she began. Her voice wasn't loud, but it cut through the air like wind through paper. About rebuilding trust, about the strength of family. She paused, and I planned to. I really did. But then I thought, what's the point in praising something that's never been true? Callista took a step forward. Valerie. But Aunt Valerie didn't look at her. For too long, she continued, this family smiled in public and erased in private. propped up one daughter while the other was left outside the frame. We edited, we cropped, we told her to be the bigger person, and she was. I felt the room turn toward me, not all at once, but enough. A soft shifting of posture, a few gasps. Aunt Valerie turned, walked off stage, crossed the ballroom in slow, steady steps. Then she hugged me. Not a polite, press-ready hug, a full embrace, solid, unapologetic. The room flashed, camera shutters snapping like firecrackers. For once, they weren't pointed at Callista. She stood frozen, one hand gripping her clutch, the other twitching near her waist. Then, heels clicking faster than applause, she stormed off stage. Her dress snagged on a chair leg. She yanked it free. Didn't look back. I didn't follow. I just stood, arms loose at my sides, breath steady, in full view, for once. Later that night in my hotel room, I lay on the bed with the curtains open. Downtown Los Angeles sparkled like a show that wouldn't end. My phone buzzed softly beside me. A message from Callista. Hey, things are rough. Any chance I could crash with you for a while? Just until I figure things out. No apology. Just the assumption that after everything, I'd still be the one holding the door. The air smelled like lemon oil and new paint. It wasn't perfect. Some corners still needed caulking, and the screen door whined every time it opened. But it was mine. Fully. Quietly. No one could take that from me anymore. The sun spilled through the windows, warming the kitchen tiles. Outside, I could hear children's laughter as they crouched with bright chalk sticks, scribbling hearts and crooked letters on the sidewalk. I stepped out with a tray of lemonade and brownies. Mr. Darnell from 2 houses down waved with a rake in hand, his teenage granddaughter Chloe sweeping leaves into a pile. "Morning, Lauren," he called. "You've got the best treats on the block." "Cheap bribes," I smiled, handing him a cup. "But they work." One little boy had written "You Matter" in looping blue letters right in front of my porch. Another added "Welcome home," with the E in home slightly backwards. I blinked, but didn't cry. That part of me had softened, not vanished. The phone buzzed in my pocket. Aunt Valerie. "Hey, sweetheart," she said, her voice easy and kind. "I just wanted to hear how the day's going." "Lively," I said. "Lots of sugar-fueled creativity." She chuckled. "That sounds about right. I hope you know I'm proud of you, not for what you did back there, but for what you've built since." I looked at the kids drawing on the sidewalk, the folding table covered in crumbs, the lemon slice bobbing in my cup. "Thank you," I said. "That means more than you know." After the call, I went inside to grab more napkins and paused at the hallway closet. Something nudged me to open the old photo box again. Near the bottom, I found a bent, slightly faded picture from my 3rd grade school play. Cardboard crowns, glittery wings. I was barely visible, off to the side. But in the corner, blurry but unmistakable, was Aunt Valerie, standing, clapping like her life depended on it. I smiled and set the photo on the shelf near the door. Then came the buzz. Callista. Her message was short, not angry, not apologetic. "We're family. Don't shut me out." I stared at it for a long while. She hadn't said sorry, hadn't asked what she'd done or what she could fix, just assumed I'd leave the door cracked, waiting. I took a breath, slow and full, and typed back. "There's no space for lies here anymore. I wish you peace." That was it. I didn't send more. I didn't reread it. I just hit send. Then I walked to the inside of the front door, where a sticky note from months ago still clung faintly. I peeled it off. In its place, I wrote a new one. "This is who I am." Outside, the wind tugged gently at the edges of the welcome mat. A girl in pigtails was chalking a crooked sun just below the steps. Her friend added tiny birds. They looked up and waved. I waved back. They wanted a key, but I'd already built a door. Some people wait their whole lives to be invited in, but I stopped waiting and built a door instead. Sometimes, the deepest healing doesn't come from getting an apology. It comes from choosing peace and refusing to live in spaces built on silence. We don't always get the family we deserve, but we can always build a life that reflects who we truly are. If this story reminded you of a moment you had to choose yourself, I hope you'll share it. I read every word, and you're always welcome here.